Okay, Giant team members, in this module, we're going to be talking about the images of change management. And that might sound a little ambiguous or a little fuzzy to start off. What are you talking about, the images of change management? And this lecture, this module, I think ties back to our second class when we were really talking about our worldview, our mental models, the way we perceive the world and why we perceive the world the way we do. Well, if we take what we learned there and we fast forward to this class and particularly this module, we're looking at the approaches of change management. There's different ways we could initiate, we could engage in, we could try to change. And a lot of that depends on our images of change. So as somebody who's trying to initiate change, as a change manager, it's important to understand your perspective, your worldview, your mental models, your perceptions of change. And that's what we're going to look at in this, particularly this module. We're going to be looking at what are those images that change managers have, and then how does that impact the change efforts? How does that impact the organization? How does that impact the individuals who are the employees who are part of this change process? So that's what we're going to be looking at in this module, or in this module. So we're going to understand the images of managing change, right? So there's the overall process of managing change. There's the images of change outcomes. What do we want to get? Are we going to get everything we intend to? Are there going to be some unintended maybe consequences or outcomes of what we're doing? And then the images of the change manager. And you're going to see these images, these 6 images of a change manager throughout the entire book. And we just look at that image from a different perspective. Okay, and we'll focus on some more than others, but the ones, these 6 that we're going to cover: director, coach, navigator, interpreter, caretaker, and nurturer. So those are the images that we're going to really look at and examine and understand those perspectives and those perceptions of those individuals. And then how do we use those change management images? So if there's something at work you're looking to change, whether it's a new process, whether it's a new system, whether it's new technology, it's good to understand your mental models, your images of what's going on, because that's going to have a big impact on how that process goes. So change managers, the way in which they are described and their understanding of their roles plays a big part in the success of change. So not only understanding kind of their perceptions and their images, but also understanding their roles. What are their roles in this whole change process, and how does that role impact other employees? You're going to see some names associated with change when we talk about the change process. Maybe the most popular, the biggest one you'll hear is a change agent, and that's been around for a long time, that change agent name. And it's been used traditionally for both internal individuals who are responsible for change and then external change people. Maybe you might have a consultant that comes in, and the name that person will take is a change agent. But we could also use that internally too, and it's probably the most common name that you'll see. You might also see change manager, and a change manager really is overseeing and controlling more small-scale change. When you use the word change manager, you're thinking, okay, they're using basic tools, basic techniques. We're overseeing some small-scale change that are going here. So just what you would think of as a manager, right? You're managing these small-scale change. And then you might see someone called a change leader, and that implies a larger, more transformational type change, right? A change leader is somebody who's maybe taking the company in an entire new direction, like when Dell computers went from really just the hardware of computers to more consulting services and technology services. That's a change leader taking the company in in a new direction. Something to keep in mind, these last two, change manager and change leader, would suggest that the large-scale change is more important. Hey, we're looking for change leaders because this is way more important than what we're doing. When in actuality, some of those smaller scale changes are just as important, if not more important. So, just because we're saying, hey, this person's a change manager, she's a change leader, doesn't mean that, hey, this is way more important. Let's devote all our energy and attention here. Because those small scale changes are really what drives companies forward. So we're going to talk about images and mental models and frames and perspectives. All of those things we're going to be talking about in this module. And remember back to our second class, these things paint our thinking, our perceptions, actions about expectations and interpretations in the workplace. So, how is it that you view the workplace? What are your mental models about a workplace? And those mental models really drive your thinking. For myself, I've always, and I'm not sure why, I've always had this maybe more transactional feeling about the workplace. I was always reluctant to get close. I always viewed work as transactional, and I will probably be moving on, or the company will probably be moving on from me, so don't form any long-term attachments. Don't really get close to people at work, and when you go to work, do your work and just kind of go home. That was always my mental model, my perspective, my frame, my image of what work is. So of course my behaviors at work are going to reflect that, right? Versus somebody who's maybe more, hey, I want to be involved in everything, and I want to, whether it's that organizational citizenship behavior or just making contacts and relations and having friends at work and getting together maybe after work. Two very different perspectives of what work is, and as a result you would take two very separate approaches to engagement at work and just the work itself. So these things really do paint our understanding of the work. There's no right or wrong image either, just different lenses. It doesn't mean that I'm wrong or that person's wrong or right. It's just kind of, what we grew up in, and what were some of our earlier experiences and some of our earlier thoughts, and maybe some of the earlier managers that we had or influences that we had. So there's really no right or wrong image of this, but we're just looking at things through different lenses. I always some of the people that come to work and they're just they're raw for they wear that company shirt and they're all in, and I was never like that. I always looked at that as okay, that's your mental model, that's your image of the workplace and your approach to the workplace. But it was just never mine. I was never that kind of cheerleader for an organization. Change managers, of course, have their own images of the organization and their role for change. So if you're somebody who's in that role of implementing and making changes, you're going to have an idea of an image of the organization and an image of your role as a change manager. That will influence your thinking and your behavior and your actions. It is important as we go through this that change managers, though, understand that they might need to shift from one image or role to another depending on the circumstances. In our first class, we talked a lot about contingency approaches to management and leadership, and it depends on the circumstances that's going on. So whether we're looking at large-scale change or small changes or transformational changes, or what are the consequences of change, people in change, we may need to change our image about our functions, about what we're doing, and our roles may need to change a little bit to fit more with the situation and the circumstances that are going on. Okay, so that's our quick hit kind of overview of this this module that we're in. We're going to be talking a lot about images of change managers and consequences and outcomes of change, and then we're going to try to put all of that in the context of change management, why we change, how we change, and how we need to view ourselves as change managers.